Chapter 371, I am sorry to have met you. You still have the nerve to laugh? Huo Liancheng's eyelids twitched. If I don't laugh, do you want to cry? Jianyun pursed her lips, but she could not hide the flowing smile in her eyes. She moved closer to Huo Liancheng and hooked her arm around his neck. She asked with a smile, Then you know I don't like you. Why don't you back out? Huo Liancheng stared into Jianyun's eyes and said expressionlessly, You want me to back off? Jianyun thought about it and said, At that time, it was hope. I did not have many dreams, and I did not want to marry into a wealthy family. A man like you is too dangerous. I hate those jealous relationships. If I had to fight with a group of women every day, I would rather marry that lawyer and get married than live like this. Marriage? Are you willing to have sex without a sex life? Huo Liancheng was breathing heavily. Jianyun shrugged. It doesn't matter if you have never experienced it. Besides, if you really need it, you can just find a long-term partner. Huo Liancheng's handsome face darkened, but he still asked, Do you regret it now? What do you think? Jianyun wrapped her arms around Huo Liancheng's neck. Her small face was full of smiles, and her big black gem-like eyes reflected the light of the streetlights outside the car window. It was extremely dazzling. I want to hear it from you. Huo Liancheng was very domineering. Jianyun rolled her eyes and opened her mouth. She said softly, Actually, I am very late. However, before Jianyun could say the words behind her words, Huo Liancheng rudely pressed down on her mouth. Don't say. Huo Liancheng was extremely nervous. God knew that he was afraid that Jianyun would say the word regret. He was the only one who was not confident in his relationship with Jianyun. He had always been the one who took the initiative. She basically accepted it passively. Although the relationship was getting better now, he still felt worried. Especially the appearance of Jianyun's childhood sweetheart tonight. It made him feel a sense of crisis again. Shu Haiyang was right. His relationship with Jianyun was only a few short months, and Shu Haiyang and Jianyun had been together for 8 years. They had separated for 6 years, but Jianyun still could not forget him. This comparison made Huo Liancheng even more uneasy. Didn't you want me to tell you? Jianyun pulled Huo Liancheng's hand, her dark eyes full of smiles. Huo Liancheng turned his head stiffly and said coldly, I don't want to hear it now. You really don't want to hear it? Jianyun tilted her head and playfully hooked Huo Liancheng's firm chin. Her big eyes flashed. You really don't want to hear it? No. Huo Liancheng's handsome face was stiff. However, he was tickled by Jianyun in his heart. His eyes flashed, and he said casually, If it's good words, I can barely hear it. Jianyun held back her laughter in her heart and was about to suffer internal injuries. President Huo's tsundere little appearance was really rare. He clearly wanted to know what she thought of him, but he still pretended not to care. Then come over, I will tell you secretly. Jianyun hooked her finger at Huo Liancheng. Huo Liancheng put his ear to Jianyun's mouth. He was already nervously clenching his hands, but he still looked as if nothing had happened. I am very late. Jianyun deliberately dragged her voice until she saw Huo Liancheng's tightly pursed lips. Her handsome face was full of loneliness. Only then did she change the topic and said with a smile, I regret not agreeing to you earlier. Huo Liancheng was already prepared. Jianyun said that she regretted meeting him. She was pestered by him and cheated to get her marriage certificate. He had already thought about it. Anyway, he had been pestering Jianyun countless times. This time was not missing. Even if she said she regretted, she could not change his decision to pester her for life. He would definitely not let her go. But what did Jianyun mean now? She regretted it. But it was not that she regretted meeting him, but that she did not promise him earlier. Huo Liancheng's brain, which had always been quick to think and quick to react, suddenly became a machine at this moment. Jianyun saw that Huo Liancheng did not react for a long time, and thought that he did not hear her because her voice. But on second thought, the space here was just so big. Her voice just now was not small either. It was impossible that she did not hear it. That was because she was shocked. Hey, what are you thinking about? Jianyun pulled Huo Liancheng's cheek. I didn't hear you clearly. Say it again. Huo Liancheng was overwhelmed by emotions, but he did not show it on his face. He held back the excitement that was about to explode in his heart. All right, I say, I regret meeting you, Jianyun said deliberately. No, I heard you say that I regret not meeting me earlier. Huo Liancheng narrowed his eyes. No. Jianyun squinted her eyes but could not hold it in anymore. She laughed. I love you. I love you too. Huo Liancheng kissed Jianyun fiercely, and his tense, handsome face softened. He could not help smiling. Do you really think so? If you do it again, are you willing to promise me sooner? Jianyun no longer had the mood to joke around. She nodded seriously and hooked her arm around Huo Liancheng's neck. She smiled gently. I did not know you would be so good in the past. I hope that I can live with you every second of my life. This was the first time Huo Liancheng had heard Jianyun say such sweet words. She had always been reserved. No matter how passionate she was not willing to say those words. At this moment, he actually heard such an oath from her mouth. How could he not be excited? Me too, so never leave me. Huo Liancheng hugged Jianyun tightly. Just now, he was still uneasy because of Shu Haiyang's appearance. His heart instantly calmed down. Why do I feel like our roles have reversed? Shouldn't I be worried that you don't want me? Jian Yun had heard Huo Liancheng say this more than once. She did not understand why he was so insecure with his condition. He was always worried that she would abandon him. Or was it that the lack of motherly love that he grew up with determined his insecure heart under his strong exterior? Thinking of this, Jian Yun frowned and had a face full of suspicion. Don't tell me you think of me as your mother? Huo Liancheng was originally full of joy. He was so excited that he only wanted to give the best things in the world to Jian Yun. Even if she wanted the stars in the sky now, he would try hard to take them off. However, Jian Yun's sudden wild imagination made him feel as if he had been splashed with cold water. His handsome face instantly turned black. He suddenly tapped Jian Yun's forehead with his finger. What nonsense are you talking about? Why are you talking about my mother? I just feel that you have an inexplicable reliance on me. This is not like your personality. Jian Yun rubbed her head and still doubted. Huo Liancheng was speechless. He felt that he could not communicate with Jian Yun, so he chose to ignore her. Hey, are you talking or not? I don't look like your mother either. I'm not a person with a mother's love either. Jian Yun muttered to herself. Enough. Huo Liancheng could not take it anymore. Chapter 372, Uninvited Guest. Jian Yun looked at Huo Liancheng and blinked her eyes. When she saw that he was about to go berserk, she covered her mouth in time. Huo Liancheng took a few deep breaths to suppress the anger in his heart. This girl had the ability to make him happy and hit him hard again. She did not know what was going on in her mind. Jian Yun saw Huo Liancheng's cold pressure and knew that what she said was a little too much. Clearly, she was suspecting him and thinking deeper about it. It was no wonder that a straight man like Huo Liancheng would be so angry. All right, I am talking nonsense. Don't mind it. Jian Yun quickly greeted him. She hugged Huo Liancheng and rubbed her face against his chin. Huo Liancheng's anger instantly disappeared when he saw the cat-like woman in his arms. He pinched Jian Yun's face fiercely, threatened in a vicious tone. If you dare to talk nonsense again, be careful of me. Jian Yun rolled her eyes. You want me to be unable to get out of bed for 3 days again? Can you change it to something new? Huo Liancheng's mouth twitched. Then he smiled evilly. That whip, candle oil, and handcuffs. Choose one. Jian Yun's face turned red. She could not bear to think about that scene. She rolled her eyes at Huo Liancheng in a bad mood, and lightly spat. Shameless. But Huo Liancheng directly sealed it with a kiss. Her little mouth. I love you. After the kiss, Jian Yun laid on Huo Liancheng's shoulder and bit his ear. Her face was red, and her eyes looked like they were about to drip water. She said softly, I love you. I love you. Huo Liancheng responded to Jian Yun with an even more passionate and domineering kiss. When the car drove into the villa, Jian Yun got out of the car and suddenly realized that a car had also come in. The license plate number was very unfamiliar. She turned her head and asked Huo Liancheng, Is there a guest at home? But Jian Yun immediately remembered that the door of the villa was infrared detection. If it was an unfamiliar car, it would not be able to enter, so the person who came now was actually an acquaintance. Huo Liancheng also locked his brows and just stared at the vehicle. Chen Xin used his wireless headset to communicate with the security of the villa. He stood beside Huo Liancheng and Jian Yun and did not move. A few bodyguards in black suits walked out from the dark. They were trained by Chen Xin and followed quietly. Huo Liancheng did not like to be followed by too many people, but he could not be too careless with his identity, so he was surrounded by shadow bodyguards. Jian Yun always felt that she was being followed, but she could not see anyone. It was these people who were hiding in the dark to protect her. At this time, the car also stopped. Jian Yun saw that Huo Liancheng's expression was cold, and his gaze was fierce. She did not have the slightest bit of affection when she was in the car with her earlier. She could not help but become nervous. Who could the person in the car be? Who would make Huo Liancheng reveal such a nervous expression? The answer was soon revealed. When the driver got out of the car and opened the door, an elegant lady walked out slowly. The woman was very beautiful. The mature charm was unforgettable, but at the same time it was also very cold. Her eyes seemed to freeze when she looked at people. It was Shen Fangqi. Jian Yun could not hide her surprise and subconsciously grabbed Huo Liancheng's arm. Huo Liancheng should have guessed who it was long ago. When he saw Shen Fangqi walking towards him, he did not reveal a surprised expression. He was still as calm as before. There was even a trace of impatience on his handsome face. Why are you here? Can't I come? Shen Fangqi was wearing a white suit and a big hat. Under the moonlight, she was wearing a white suit. Under the moonlight, it could be seen that her makeup was exquisite. Huo Liancheng did not say anything. His sword-like brows were tightly locked. No one knew what he was thinking. Mrs. Huo? Jian Yun was a little nervous when she saw Shen Fangqi looking at her. She hurriedly greeted her respectfully when she saw Shen Fangqi looking at her. Shen Fangqi swept Jian Yun from head to toe and then asked expressionlessly, Are you going to attend the banquet? Yes, Mrs. Huo. Jian Yun did not know why she was so afraid of Shen Fangqi. Perhaps the words that Shen Fangqi said in Switzerland last time made her feel a shadow in her heart. Shen Fangqi narrowed her eyes, and Jian Yun felt guilty as she lifted up her skirt and chest. She was carried by Huo Liancheng into the woods to take care of her. He had planted strawberries in her heart, She was afraid Shen Fanqi would see it, and Shen Fanqi would definitely say that she was hurt. However, it was fine if Jian Yun did not mention it, but this mention made it even more obvious. Shen Fanqi's eyes unconsciously fell on Jian Yun's chest. Fortunately, the moonlight had dimmed at this time. Otherwise, Jian Yun would really suspect that she was going to die of embarrassment. Since you're already here, let's go in. Huo Liancheng quietly pulled Jian Yun behind him and made a path for Shen Fanqi. Shen Fanqi did not have any expression. She only glanced at Huo Liancheng and walked forward. However, Jian Yun still noticed that her hand holding the bag tightened. Jian Yun looked up at Huo Liancheng. Huo Liancheng patted the back of her hand, indicating that she should not worry. In the living room of the villa, Huo Qingcheng was watching television. When she heard the sound, she turned her head and called out, "Big brother, big sister." But when she saw Shen Fanqi's figure, the bright smile instantly froze on her face. But Shen Fanqi was already excited. She did not even notice the bag in her hand falling to the ground. She staggered to Huo Qingcheng's side. She grabbed Huo Qingcheng's hand and checked it up and down. Her lips trembled as she asked, "Qingcheng, you smiled? You can smile?" Huo Qingcheng looked at Shen Fanqi. Her small face was cold and carried a trace of rejection. "Qingcheng, you will call me big brother. Then you can call me mother. I am mother." Shen Fanqi also noticed Huo Qingcheng's stiff and cold gaze. She did not have time to think and just grabbed Huo Qingcheng's hand as if she had lost control. Jian Yun pulled Huo Liancheng and signaled him to go over. Huo Qingcheng clearly did not want Shen Fanqi to know that she was awake, but if she did not care at this moment, Shen Fanqi's appearance would make people unable to continue watching. "Mom, Qingcheng is going to sleep." Huo Liancheng also received Huo Qingcheng's pleading gaze. He walked over a few steps and reached out to pull Shen Fanqi's hand away, as he coldly said, "Liancheng, Qingcheng just called you big brother." She even smiled. Shen Fanqi was still excited, or perhaps it was more accurate to say that she was crazy. She grabbed Huo Liancheng and kept repeating these words. She did not have the usual cold and proud temperament. Huo Liancheng looked at Huo Qingcheng from the corner of his eye. Huo Qingcheng lowered her head and bit her lips without saying anything. He understood that Huo Qingcheng hated Shen Fanqi in her heart. If it were not for Shen Fanqi back then, with Huo Qingfeng's status as a branch of Huo family, he would not have had the chance to sit in the high position of Huo's today. Among them, Huo Liancheng and Huo Qingcheng knew very well how much Shen Fanqi had helped him and how much she had given Brana. It was precisely because Shen Fanqi had indulged Huo Qingfeng too much that Huo Xianqian doted on Shen Fanqi. Therefore, even though Huo Liancheng and Huo Qingcheng were the first and second successors of Huo's, they had to suffer so many persecutions and suspicions. For Huo Liancheng to be able to sit in today's position, he had put in an unimaginable amount of effort. Chapter 373. Mother, are you up to it? Compared to Huo Liancheng, although Huo Qingcheng had been injured and even wanted to die, she had paid an even greater price. She had spent all her youth in bed. Because of Huo Qingfeng's persecution, she was seriously injured and was walking on the line of life and death. But her mother still wanted to protect the murderer. How could this not make her heart turn cold? Jian Yun looked at these three people. Clearly, they were the closest in the world, but the mother and son were strangers. They had a deep knot in their hearts. As a bystander, Jin Yun knew that she did not have the right to speak. If Shen Fanqi wanted her children to open their hearts to her, she had to rely on herself. Huo Qingcheng kept her eyes down and did not speak. Huo Liancheng sighed in his heart and went forward to pull Shen Fanqi up. He turned his head and instructed the family doctor that he had invited today, Sister Fang, push Miss back to her room. She should take her medicine. Sister Fang was about 40 years old. Previously, Granny Liao was a family doctor in the country. After locking Helena up, Huo Liancheng was worried about others and took her over. Sister Fang also knew a little about the Huo family's matters, but she knew her own identity and naturally did not dare to interrupt. Moreover, this kind of wealthy family. There are a lot of things like that. As an outsider, she did not know as much as she could. At this moment, hearing Huo Liancheng's instructions, Sister Fang nodded. She felt as if a heavy burden had been lifted off her shoulders. She hurriedly pushed Huo Qingcheng's wheelchair towards the elevator. Shen Fanqi also wanted to follow, but Huo Liancheng pulled her back. Qingcheng just recovered a little. Huo Liancheng did not finish his sentence, but Shen Fanqi understood what he meant. He wanted her not to disturb Huo Qingcheng. In your heart, is mother that bad? Shen Fanqi watched Huo Qingcheng's figure disappear, then turned to look at Huo Liancheng and asked sadly. These words were said without any rhyme or reason, but Jian Yun noticed that Huo Liancheng clearly understood because the corner of his mouth had already curled into a sneer. If you are here for a vacation, I will arrange for someone to take you around. If you are here to see your son, then I will arrange for someone to take you around. In that case, I'm afraid you're going to miss him. He isn't in Qinghu City. Huo Liancheng looked at Shen Fanqi coldly. I am not here to see him. Shen Fanqi suddenly became irritable. She grabbed her hair and screamed at Huo Liancheng. Why are you all treating me like this? You all look at me coldly. What do I have to do to make you forgive me? Forgive me? Huo Liancheng had already turned around to leave, but when he heard Shen Fanqi say that, he suddenly turned around. His cold eyes were filled with anger. What have you done? You don't know yourself. How do you want us to forgive you? But what can I do? My palm and the back of my hand are flesh. You were born by me, and he was also born by me. I can't just watch him die. Shen Fanqi's emotions rose and fell. She was on the verge of collapse. She covered her face as if she was in extreme pain. Jian Yun could not bear to watch and wanted to go, but Huo Liancheng grabbed her arm. Yes, so even Qingcheng and I have to go over. If he died in that car accident, you can't just watch him die. Even if Qingcheng's life is ruined, you still think he's the best. Is this what you call the back of your hand flesh? Huo Liancheng's handsome face was cold. His eyes were filled with coldness. The big hand that was holding Jian Yun's arm was also very strong because of anger. Shen Fanqi's expression changed, but she could not find any words to defend herself. She covered her face and did not know whether it was shame or pain. Huo Liancheng quietly looked at Shen Fanqi. The gloomy expression on his handsome face disappeared and replaced it with indifference. He said in a deep voice, "What should be returned? I have already returned it to you. My tolerance for you has also reached a certain limit. If you continue to be stubborn, don't blame me for not caring about mother and son." Huo Liancheng, is this how you talk to your mother? Shen Fanqi angrily scolded. She ignored her image and rushed over to hit Huo Liancheng. Huo Liancheng did not dodge or avoid the slap. With a slap, his face turned askew. His expression became colder and colder. His eyes seemed to be freezing. Jian Yun covered her mouth and did not let out that scream. She widened her eyes and looked at the mother and son who were like fire and water in front of her in shock. She did not miss the moment when she finished hitting Huo Liancheng. The sudden look of regret and pain appeared in Shen Fanqi's eyes. Huo Liancheng closed his eyes and took a deep breath. He almost gritted his teeth and said, "I called you mom because you gave birth to me, but that is all. There are some things that I have never said before. However, you know how you treat me. Since I was born until now, when have you ever cared about me? Everything in your heart. There's only him in your heart. Mother, is this word worthy?" This sentence was too hurtful, especially when matched with Huo Liancheng's slightly raised mouth. It was a cold sneer. Jian Yun saw Shen Fanqi's face turn white in an instant. She was really pale, as if all the blood in her body had been sucked away in an instant. She could not even stand steadily and took a few steps back. She was tripped by the sofa and immediately sat down. Huo Liancheng turned around. "You go. I don't want." "Liancheng, how can you treat me like this? I am your mother." Shen Fanqi was no longer as angry as before. She seemed to be exhausted. Her eyes were full of tears and the makeup on her face was gone. She choked and said, "Even if I have made 1,000 mistakes, I gave birth to you. How can you treat me like this? You have made 1,000 mistakes. It is your fault for giving birth to me and not raising me." Huo Liancheng said very heartlessly, "I have said that I have tolerated you all too much. Don't think that I do not know what you have done. Lady Shen?" This last call from Miss Shen directly shattered Shen Fanqi's heart into pieces. Arrange for Lady Shen to go to the guest room and send her back to Switzerland tomorrow. Huo Liancheng did not look at Shen Fanqi anymore and said this sentence. He pulled Jian Yun, who was still in a daze, and turned around to walk upstairs. Liancheng, I am your mother. You cannot treat me like this." Shen Fanqi had already collapsed on the sofa and cried. Jian Yun looked back as she walked. When she saw Shen Fanqi's heartbroken look, she could not bear it. "Don't interfere in this matter. I know her personality very well. It is not something that you can pacify." Huo Liancheng pinched Jian Yun's face and did not let her turn back. He reminded her in a low voice. "Didn't what you said just now go a little overboard?" When they went upstairs and stood at the door of the room, Jian Yun could not help but tug at Huo Liancheng's arm. "She is your mother after all. How sad must she be when you say that about her? You should ask Qingcheng. Ask her if she has been lying in bed for so many years. When she wakes up, she does not even dare to tell her own mother. Is she sad?" Huo Liancheng opened the door, but did not go in. Instead, he stood there and looked at Jian Yun with his eyes fixed. His tone was very cold. "After the car accident, I broke 2 of my ribs. My legs were pierced by steel bars, and I even had a mild concussion. I have been lying in bed for half a year." Chapter 3374. Prince Huo is crazy. Huo Liancheng smiled coldly when he saw Jian Yun's shocked expression. He continued, "Qingcheng had a severe concussion, 3 of her ribs were broken, and her calf was fractured. If I hadn't crawled out of the car before the car caught fire and smashed the window with my arm to drag Qingcheng out, the 2 of us would have been burned into charcoal by then." When Jian Yun heard this, she was so shocked that she was speechless. She had only heard Huo Liancheng casually mention the car accident before. Shen Fanqi told her about the situation. This was the first time she had heard the details. Just listening to Huo Liancheng talk about it made her feel pain all over her body. It was hard to imagine how he and Huo Qingcheng had endured it. Huo Liancheng narrowed his eyes. And sneered. "Do you know what Qingcheng and I were doing when our lives were at stake?" She was busy looking for someone to destroy the evidence and protect her son. If you knew this, would you still sympathize with her? Huo Liancheng's voice was very strict when he said the last sentence. Jian Yun's tears fell instantly. This time, Huo Liancheng panicked. He hurriedly hugged Jian Yun and kissed her, consoling her. I'm not mean to you. Don't cry. Jian Yun shook her head, but she cried even more sadly. No, okay, I won't say any more. Don't cry. It's all my fault for my bad tone. Let's go in first. Huo Liancheng did not know what was wrong with Jian Yun. He was so nervous that he did not know what to do. Jian Yun rarely cried in front of him. In addition to the time when she was sent to his room to dance at the clubhouse and was humiliated by him, she also ran away and was blocked by his grandmother's house. She cried twice. She did not cry like this even when he raped her that night. After entering the room, the door was closed. Jian Yun immediately threw herself into Huo Liancheng's arms and cried loudly. Door, you're crying so hard that I'm nervous. What happened? Huo Liancheng held Jian Yun's face and asked gently. I just feel so sorry for you. Jian Yun's tears were still flowing, and she said with a sob, I used to misunderstand you like that and think that you... Huo Liancheng did not expect Jian Yun to cry because of this. He laughed and felt his heart ache. He felt that his heart was about to melt. The irritation from the argument with Shen Fengqi earlier was all swept away. He could not help but kiss Jian Yun and dry the tears on her face, blocking her mouth. Jian Yun also responded to his kiss, but when she thought of the scene Huo Liancheng had just described, she could not help but want to cry again. All right, you know how to feel sorry for me. From now on, be nicer to me. Don't give me any face at all. Huo Liancheng hooked Jian Yun's nose. How can I be bad to you? You should be the one who embarrassed me. Right now, the internet is filled with people guessing when you would dump me. Just because of the two of us, you've been wearing a dirty face the whole time. Right. The day I came out of the airport, I ran behind you and was taken by someone, saying that you've been bothering me for a long time. I'm the one who's shamelessly pestering you. Jian Yun wrinkled her nose. She knew that Huo Liancheng was changing the topic. You might also think that the topic just now was too heavy, so he smiled and started to talk about the stories about themselves on the two nets above snares below. The corner of Huo Liancheng's mouth twitched. Then you can't let me smile when I'm free outside, right? Jian Yun blinked her eyes. She felt that this scene was very funny. She couldn't help but burst into laughter. If that's the case, I reckon that the overwhelming news will say that the Crown Prince of Huo's has gone mad. Huo Liancheng snorted coldly. Why didn't I make those people's hair stand on end? Jian Yun tilted her head, because they feel the killing intent. Huo Liancheng raised his sword-like brows. He wanted to say something but saw Jian Yun making a face at him. He suddenly could not hold back and laughed. Actually, you look so good when you smile. Jian Yun hooked her arm around Huo Liancheng's neck and took a bite of his mouth. Yes, actually, I think you look good without clothes. Huo Liancheng did not want to miss the chance to tease Jian Yun. Jian Yun blushed when she heard this. Hey, how can you be so shameless? I'm trying to communicate with you. We won't be able to talk like this. Huo Liancheng's eyes were full of smiles. He picked Jian Yun up and walked to the bed. Since we are talking so much, let's do something else. Jian Yun nervously pushed Huo Liancheng. Hey, don't, it's time. You still have the mood to do that? What did I do? Huo Liancheng pretended to be surprised. I just saw that you were too tired in high heels, so I decided to take you to the bed and massage your feet. What did you think? Jian Yun pouted and glared at Huo Liancheng. She said angrily, You made fun of me again. Huo Liancheng kissed Jian Yun's nose and put her on the bed. He took off her high heels and rubbed her slender legs. He smiled gently. Don't worry, I don't know what to do. Today is not the day for us to do things that we both love to do. Go take a shower and change your clothes. We will go and see Ching Cheng later. Jian Yun pursed her lips and nodded. You don't want to take a bath? Huo Liancheng smiled gently. I have a phone call to make. I will take a bath later. Jian Yun blinked and walked 2 steps forward. Then she turned around. Help me unzip it. Huo Liancheng smiled and gently hugged Jian Yun from behind. He kissed her neck and helped her unzip her dress. Jian Yun went into the bathroom, but Huo Liancheng was sitting by the bed. He leaned his upper body forward and held his hands in front of him. He looked at the ground with his eyes. The gentle expression on his handsome face had also disappeared, replaced by a deep loneliness. Perhaps only he knew how much despair and pain he felt when he said those heartless words to Shen Fengqi. But what else could he do if he did not say it? Shen Fengqi thought that what she did was flawless. She transferred the assets of the Huos to Huo Chengfeng and allowed him to use the resources of the Huos to set up a new company outside. If others really wanted to investigate, not only would she not be able to pass the board of directors, but she would also be imprisoned. At that time, no one would be able to protect her. Moreover, she had destroyed the evidence of Huo Chengfeng, harming him and Huo Qingcheng. Did she think that he had no other way? She was really too naive. When Jian Yun came out of the washroom, she saw Huo Liancheng standing at the window and making a phone call. The window was open. He narrowed his eyes and had a cigarette in his mouth. Jian Yun did not disturb him. She sat in front of the dressing table and applied layers of skincare products. Huo Liancheng gave her. Speaking of which, when she had not moved to the villa a while ago, she had used up all of her skincare products. She remembered that she had bought some big brand of milk from Wu Wenjing last time, so she dug it out and used it. She had never been allergic to skin. That night, she found her face itchy and burning. Chapter 375. According to your size. Jun Yun originally wanted to boil it for a bit. She guessed that she had eaten something at night, but it had not even been 2 hours. Her face was full of red spots, and she could not resist the itch. Huo Liancheng took her to Senior Yin's house overnight and woke the old man up in the middle of the night. In the end, Senior Yin could tell at a glance that she was allergic to cosmetics. He even asked Jun Yun about it. Did she use some fake skincare products? Jun Yun only then remembered that Wu Wenjing's so-called big-name skincare products were probably fake. After that, Senior Yin gave Jun Yun the ointment he made himself and asked her not to use anything for half a month. He only used water to wash her face and apply the ointment on her face. Fortunately, Senior Yin's ointment was indeed effective. Jun Yun felt less itchy after applying it twice. The next day, the bag on her face also disappeared a lot. After that, Huo Liancheng did not let Jun Yun use skincare products randomly. He used the Yin family's ancestral formula to make skincare products. Jun Yun felt that it was really very useful. It was much better than those big shots. Jun Yun had just finished applying the ointment when Huo Liancheng hung up the phone and walked over. He stood behind Jun Yun and looked at her in the mirror. His eyes were deep and charming. What are you laughing at? Jun Yun asked. Your appearance reminds me of my blushing face that night. At that time, I almost thought I had seen a ghost. Huo Liancheng teased her with a smile. Jun Yun rolled her eyes at Huo Liancheng and did not argue with him. I thought about it and still told Wu Wenjing. At first, she did not believe it and said that she trusted the person who delivered the goods to her. Later, she tried it herself. What was the result? Huo Liancheng raised his eyebrows. She went to the hospital for 3 days. Jun Yun shook her head with sympathy. Because she is seriously allergic. I really don't know why you women are so cruel to yourselves. You don't know the source, but you still dare to use it on your face. Huo Liancheng ruffled Jun Yun's long hair and pulled her up from the chair. Isn't it because this is a world of looks? Jun Yun turned to face Huo Liancheng and looked up at him. She said seriously, if my face is old and ugly, you definitely won't look at me anymore. Even if I saved you back then, you would at most thank me. You would not take a liking to me like this. Huo Liancheng curled his lips. This assumption is not valid. Sometimes, love depends on fate. Many people passed by, but no one was willing to help me. They even hid far away when they saw me. They thought I was dirty. Only you don't dislike me. Jun Yun thought for a while and agreed with Huo Liancheng. That's true. I often meet homeless people on the road, but at most I only gave them some money, but I never brought them home like I did back then. So, this is our fate, Huo Liancheng smiled. Okay, I admit you are right. Jun Yun narrowed her eyes and snuggled into Huo Liancheng's arms intimately. She wrapped her arms around his waist and said softly, I love you. What's wrong with you tonight? No matter how I coaxed you in the past, you did not want to say these 3 words to me. Why do you suddenly keep saying it? Huo Liancheng hooked Jun Yun's chin. He was a little surprised and was more overwhelmed by the unexpected favor. God knew how hard it was for him to wait for her to say those 3 words. He found her with great difficulty, but he found that she was actually hurt by another man. At that time, he had never felt depressed or uncomfortable before. Don't you like to hear it? Then I won't talk about it in the future. Jun Yun pouted. She was wearing a casual t-shirt and pants, but she could not cover up her graceful curves. At this moment, she revealed her young daughter's delicate manner, which immediately made a certain part of Huo Liancheng restless. Of course I like to hear it. It's just that I feel that this happiness came too suddenly, and I don't dare to believe it. Huo Liancheng suppressed his desire and looked at her. He frowned and asked, could it be that you saw your ex-boyfriend at night and suffered some kind of stimulation? When Jun Yun heard this, she felt like she was about to cough up blood. She pushed Huo Liancheng away angrily and said angrily, yes, I was provoked. See you tonight. I found that I still like my ex-boyfriend, but now I'm on your boat again. I can't be with him anymore, so I can only keep telling you that I love you. It's also to brainwash myself. Just listen to it. Don't take it to heart. Before Jun Yun could finish, Huo Liancheng's face had turned as black as the bottom of a pot. He was stiff. It was obvious that he was suppressing his anger and was about to explode. All right, that's it. From now on, I will not sleep with you anymore. Goodbye. Jun Yun did not care. After saying this very proudly, she turned her head and left. She was a very persistent person. In the past, she did not accept him. Later on, although she accepted Huo Liancheng, she did not say that she loved him. It was because she was not completely sure of her feelings. Even if there was only a little uncertainty, she did not dare to promise easily. But now it was different. Seeing Xu Haiyang again, Jun Yun found that she had completely let go of her heart. The feelings of those green years had become memories. Now, what she was thinking in her heart and her eyes were all looking at Huo Liancheng. Who would have thought that he would be suspicious if she were thirsty? This was ridiculous. Where are you going? Huo Liancheng was flustered and exasperated. He grabbed Jian Yun and pulled her into his arms. Jian Yun pushed Huo Liancheng impatiently. I'm going to Qing Cheng's place. Then what should I do? Huo Liancheng asked. You can do whatever you want. Jian Yun gave him a sidelong glance. I'm used to sleeping with you. I can't sleep without you. Huo Liancheng acted like a scoundrel. If you can't sleep, hold the pillow. If you can't, I'll make you an inflatable doll. What do you like? Teacher Khan or teacher clothing? Or do you like European and American types? Jian Yun was not afraid of death, and sneered. She crossed her arms and asked. The corner of Huo Liancheng's mouth twitched. His eyes were filled with irritation. He grabbed Jian Yun's hand and pressed her against the wall. He gritted his teeth and said angrily, I like your kind. Fix it for me according to your size. That won't do. I don't want to see myself being ruined by you. Jian Yun struggled for a while but did not break free from Huo Liancheng's grip. She snorted coldly. Let go. Why did I ruin you? Huo Liancheng was about to lose his temper from Jian Yun's provocation. He could not help pinching Jian Yun's face and said fiercely, I am so handsome and mighty. I have great skills. Even if I spoil you, don't you feel honored? You are still so mighty. Jian Yun was really shocked by Huo Liancheng's shamelessness. She looked at him in disbelief and said that he was a good life. She originally wanted to say a few words to hurt him, but she could not help it. Poochie? She laughed and directly broke the technique. Could it be that you don't agree? Huo Liancheng raised one of his sword-like eyebrows. Jian Yun smiled and he felt relieved. Although he knew she was joking with him, he knew she was serious and he was nervous. He was afraid that she would really ignore him. It seemed that he was definitely going to be eaten by her for the rest of his life.